That's
He
good.
he hit me at a solid, I was stuck.
Okay, everyone all set?
25, 30 mile.
I'll call the planning board meeting to order for December 14th, 2022. Happy holidays to everyone, Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, and we'll be starting another year shortly. Tonight, I just want to point out for the vast audience here that this room has two exits on the right-hand side of the audience, the front of the room, the back of the room. If we need to evacuate for any reason, we ask you to proceed through the exit closest to you, go outside, don't come back in till our firefighters have instructed us to do so. I'd like to ask everyone to please rise and pledge allegiance to the American flag. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
It's tough for me to get that gut out of the way.
Okay, we have a full house tonight, so we have 9 voting members. That's more than a quorum, and we can proceed with the meeting. Meeting tonight, we have administrative board work first, where we got our business done. And then we have 2 public hearings. One's a site plan, the other is a subdivision plan. Both of them have requested continuances. And then we have a capital improvement CIP workshop to discuss CIP ranking criteria and other info that Amy and Kelly has for us. I'll start with administrative board work. We have no minutes to approve. They were approved at the last meeting. Regional impact determinations, Kelly has 2 of them for us.
Yes, Mr. Chair.
And we just learned a little more about regional impact determinations.
The first is an application for a design review of a site plan for the proposed development of 264 dwelling units, multifamily residential development with associated parking and amenities. Michael's Way, map 10, lot 41, zoned AR1 in Woodmont, planned unit development. Pillsbury Realty Development LLC is the owner, and WP East Acquisitions is the applicant. Staff is recommending this is not of regional impact. And the second is an application for design review of a subdivision of tax map 28, lots 10, 14, and 4-1, creating lots 10-4 and 10-1, 1 Highlander Way, map 28, lots 10, zone C2 and industrial 2, and airport overlay district, and 4 Sparks Ave, map 28, lot 14, zoned industrial 2, and airport overlay district. City of Manchester is the owner, and Benton Family Trust is the applicant, and this is also not of regional impact.
Okay, thank you. Board have any questions? If not, I'll take a motion.
I do have one question.
Okay,
So,
Lynn.
I'm just looking at the Alta application, and I know Michael's Way is more than 1,000 feet away from the Dairy Town line, but given the size of the development, and its proximity to Pillsbury Road, going on to Ash Street, is there anything that we should be working with the town of Derry on regarding that development?
Not in staff's view, but I mean, if the board feels differently, then
It's really the board's decision. If the board feels that there's an impact on dairy, which, I really don't know how to assess it at the moment.
I guess a comparison, how was the Baldwin project reviewed?
The Baldwin project was not of regional impact. And I think other projects in there have not been of regional impact. The whole PUD, when that ordinance came through, that was, and it was reviewed by Southern New Hampshire Planning Commission. And I know Derry had input on it, and that was the only town we had heard from. But nothing else that has occurred there has been of regional impact.
So I'll just say the Baldwin's probably a development where people aren't going to be driving in and out of a lot compared to an apartment complex. But I don't know if it's just, if it's just courtesy to notify the town of Derry that this is happening, the Derry Planning and Development Department, or something like that.
You could always send a note to George Sioris, let him know what's going on. They usually keep track of what occurs here anyway. George is pretty good.
So, I mean, we do our legally required abutter notices, but if you do vote this of regional impact, then that does trigger a pause in the process, and we do the statutory required regional impact notification process, so.
Yeah, and I realize it doesn't meet the criteria 100%,
Yep.
or, I don't think at all, but just wondering, just given the size of the development, the fact that it's going to be putting traffic onto Pillsbury Road, which will go on to Ash Street and Derry, I just didn't know if it would be a neighborly thing to do to notify the town of Derry that this was happening, and if they chose to be involved, that they could be involved.
Mr. Chair,
Yes,
doesn't Woodmont continuously also do traffic studies as well
yes.
in that whole area? So,
They're gonna have to do a traffic study when, you know.
That's correct.
when
That's
it
part of this
becomes
process.
board, so that is true. So, I mean, the way I look at it, we have the set of criteria which is applied to everyone. And if we make exceptions, one, we get to have a specific reason for the exception. But, you know, usually we stay in close contact with Derry.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion that neither one of these projects meets the standard for regional impact.
Second.
Okay, motion by Al, I have a
give it a
second by
check.
Jake. I have a motion on the floor. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, say nay. Abstentions? Chair was affirmative. Those projects are of not a regional impact. We'll just let, just a note to Derry that, probably kind of like what's going on with Woodmont.
Yep.
Or even to the planning commission too.
I mean,
So-
generally, Derry is aware of Woodmont,
Yes, I
so we
know
do
they are.
have fairly frequent, frequent conversation with the
Yeah,
town of
because
Derry.
every once in a
about
while, I got comments from George on, you know, what's happening, so.
Yep.
Okay, we've taken care of that. Discussions with town staff.
Done this evening.
Everything's all set. Everything's going good. Okay, anything from the board? Nope, just,
Mr. Chair, I was wondering if we could maybe talk amongst the board here and get an opinion on maybe holding some sort of a workshop. I've been on the board now for, I think I'm ending my second term or my third term, I can't remember.
you could be an old timer there, Jake.
I know, tell me about it, huh? I think we should look at doing a review of our entire process from, an application submission through design review to approval of the planning board. Obviously, we had a lot of in-depth conversation at the last meeting, and there were some things that stuck out to me that made me wonder if our process is where it should be and our regulations are where they should be, to make sure that we're being as, we talked a little bit about customer service earlier. We are a customer service board, and I'm concerned that maybe we're not being as customer service friendly as we want to be for potential development. So I'd kind of like to hear what the board's opinion is on, maybe holding some sort of a workshop that would help us identify what, if any, issues we do have inside of our process, as well as talking through the board of, how we would go about holding that workshop, who we would hold that workshop with.
It would be
And so
with staff, I think we could take the direction from staff. They're the ones that really have to meet the public, deal with the public and everything. And, as far as really the customer service part, they are the first responder.
Yeah, I
So
agree.
it happens there. We have looked at, in the past to kind of streamline things, and we have made changes. The thing is, we just don't want to weaken what we have.
I
because
agree.
This is what's created the way the town is,
Yeah.
We just don't lay over for
I-
development. But the thing is,
Yeah.
we help them also.
I agree, but I think a review of our process, if the board so chooses, to have us do a review of our process is a, reasonably prudent request to make sure that it is what, we are doing what we should be and what the, how our process works and if it's going appropriately.
Yeah, well, the thing is, what usually works is you hear complaints from developers that, the town is too tough and everything, and you hear complaints about town folks that we favor all these developers. It's kind of like you gotta look at, to find a midpoint there. Because, you know, just as much as trying to please developers, we have to please people that live here in town.
Absolutely.
And I know when projects come in, you can get a lot of butters and the neighborhood show up and complain or just don't want it. So it's something that we probably will take a look at. I know we had discussed this with Colleen, I think at the beginning of last year, but never really got into the time to do it, so.
It would be prudent to do it, especially now with a new economic development slash assistant town manager, whatever other hat that she's wearing for the day.
Or the night.
I think,
She's got many hats. She's a very busy person also. So that's one thing we have to realize. I think some of it could be an evaluation of the head count, manpower, lady power that we have in our economic planning and economic development department. So and that's probably falls upon the town manager to participate also and to provide the resources that this board is asking for.
Yeah, and I don't know if the rest of the board would be interested in doing something like that, but I think it's something we should talk about, you know?
I think,
And maybe we could
Jake,
have
to
it,
your point, I'm sorry, Ted.
go ahead.
It just routinely, just to kind of go through, review the process, look for efficiency gains and stuff like that. I totally understand, the chair's remarks regarding, that balance and that double-edged sword aspect of it. But, just routinely finding some type of efficiencies to, that we could impart in our process without completely taking them all apart.
Yeah, because I think a part of it also is adhering to the master plan and keeping the tone and atmosphere of the town and what it's at, because the bulk of the people in town, I think like how the town has grown. I haven't heard many complaints other than the usual is that, there's too many cars on the road, we're growing too fast, there's too many people here. I kind of hear that on a routine basis, so.
And I think it would be prudent to meet with engineers and designers and find out why are they all saying for many years that it's easier to do work in other towns than it is to do in Londonderry? And why do I hear multiple times that I'd rather go to another town than work in Londonderry?
Yeah, they'll always say that. So
Well, maybe,
regardless,
but
just general
I'd like to know
principles.
why. Maybe we should be having a charrette with them.
So if
and
we have a
find
charrette
out
with
what
them,
they
we
eat.
should have a charrette with town folks and see what they think of
That's
it
true,
too.
but they should all be invited.
Absolutely.
You really got two sides.
Oh, I
That's what we
agree,
deal
but
with,
we need to at least
constantly.
hear the input upon what are the actual issues and how can we actually solve them so that we can actually get more business to come to town and hopefully at some point reduce the tax base for the people living in town.
Well,
I
there's-
just
there's-
worry that you're gonna not necessarily get honest feedback from the people that actually have to go back in front of the town. So it almost like you need, if we're supposed to be business friendly, you need to survey your customers every once in a while. You need to see what they think of it, what their opinion of it is,
Agreed.
and find out what their experience here is versus other towns. Versus just assuming that we're business friendly, and that's one of our charges up there is that, we're a customer service arm to somebody coming through a site planning or subdivision process.
I very much understand the taxpayer's stance of I don't want to build it here, build it someplace else. But at the same respect, I also hear the taxes are too high here and, we're supporting, so much. The only way to lower your tax rate is to have either stop growth altogether, which isn't going to happen, or to bring businesses in that are going to raise your taxable base, which then decreases your homeowner's responsibility. And we still have very large areas within this community to develop that are not going to have much of an impact on the general taxpayer within Londonderry, because like all of Pettingill Road and all of that area up there is all still free building area.
Actually, our tax rate is kind of like in the middle comparison to all the towns and cities of the state of New Hampshire. If you're here back in the 80s, we were about at the top. So things have changed quite a bit. We've brought in a lot of business that has really defrayed the tax rate, at least offset it. So this community has made tremendous progress. And that's back in the days we were looking at 400 plus new dwelling permits per year. And the town put in a very arbitrary growth management ordinance. It went to Superior Court and got thrown out very quickly. There's no real valid reason for selecting 400 for a limit. So Londonderry has learned the hard way from a lot of things, and we try to protect that, what we do have.
I'm in favor of smart growth and not just rolling, like you said, rolling over for developers and things like that, and doing it the right way and making sure that, that the type of growth that we want in this town is what is happening. But by the same token, I think there's always an opportunity to see if you can be more efficient. Every process should be reviewed, like in every step of life, should be reviewed to see if it's more efficient. You're never as efficient as you possibly could be.
Right. Efficiency is always one of those things that's unobtainable.
I feel like I hear a board that is in somewhat of agreement of what I'm saying, so I guess that would bring up the question of how do we go about doing this? How do we create a review of our process?
Well, I think we'll have a workshop on it, probably sometime, maybe first quarter of next year, and we'll give staff the opportunity to work at it, also to put things in perspective for us, because I don't think we're as conversant in the current regulations as the staff is. So. And I think it's incumbent upon us to review what we have now for our regulations, site plan, subdivision regulations, the whole process that we have.
So could we set a date or a plan as to how we're gonna move forward with the beginning steps of creating a review process that we can go through as a board? Can we set some guidelines to that and, expectations of when we'd like to do that?
Right now, I'd say first quarter, but we don't know what the workload is gonna be, because we have site plans and subdivision plans to, cover first. So if we have a meeting that is probably gonna take, like the last one, we're here till a little after 11 with just 4 plans. If we have something like that, several times in the course of the first quarter.
And
That's not gonna make
Yeah.
it so easy to sit and discuss unless you want another extra meeting.
Mr. Chair, if I could just intervene a little bit.
Okay.
I think that staff can certainly put together an overview of our current process, and that is the starting point to receive feedback from the board as far as where we are efficient and where we may be lacking efficiency. I can assess the agendas as they are created and try and figure out within the first quarter what a realistic work session is. So that's something that we can certainly do.
Yeah, because we don't want to be debating this at 10 p.m. at night. We like to do it at 7 p.m.
And,
when
holding
we're
a separate
here,
meeting
or
for it
even
is,
earlier.
sounds like everybody would,
But
I
I
guess we'd
think
have to
that,
get an opinion, but I would, for one, would have no problem having a meeting where it is specific, a workshop specific to what we're discussing.
yeah, because, the third Wednesday, the ZBA isn't here, but usually we would take the fourth Wednesday of each month to do things. And that's how we got through the Woodmont master plan. Jenny?
Is it legal to put a non-public meeting like we had today? I found that extremely beneficial. So thank you, Mr. Chair, for putting that on. Is there a way that we could do a similar type format and we could go through the whole process?
No, we'd have to do it publicly. Everything, it'd have to be a public meeting, it'd have to be warned. Probably most of the public, probably 7 p.m. is a good time for them to come. 5:30 is not always most convenient for the public that might be interested in at least listening to this discussion, because at a certain point when we do make changes, we have to have a public hearing. So we get the public input there.
But I'd
Yeah,
like to
yeah.
say,
Yeah, I got a gentleman who wants to speak first.
Well, Mr.
so,
Chairman, are you accepting a comment?
Yes,
this,
I-
on this
I think
discussion?
you should
I
accept
haven't heard
the
anything
board
coming.
members before we go to the public right now. The gentleman was from the New Hampshire Municipal Association, correct?
Yes.
He's given many, many talks over the years. I've gone to a lot of them.
If you tune in onto the New Hampshire Municipal Association webpage, there's plenty of opportunities to take advantage of, and some of them I know do cost money, but also the Office of State Planning and Development, which I know tomorrow, Thursday, they have their noontime seminar, which is the third Thursday of every month, and it's going to be on, the housing assessment. So, and you have to, it's online, you have to, at least send in an application for it to get the, password and so forth to join. So things like that there's much more things available now that the board, I think, because I know at the lunchtime seminars, I've seen Ann on there, I've seen Jeff on there, I've seen Lynn on there.
I've taken 2 of them.
Yeah,
Great.
and Johnny, so it's very, very helpful for the education of
And
this.
I've gone to many of the meetings up in Concord, too,
Yeah,
especially when I started on the board. So many of them were offered.
okay. John,
Okay. So John Farrell, member of the Town Council for Hancock Drive. As a member of the Town Council, I probably receive the lion's share of what I would call comments from people who are trying to do development with the town. Generally, the comment I get is that we're difficult to deal with. So when I drill down on that and I say to them, well, tell me what we're difficult to deal with about. What is it? What is the issue? It is very difficult for me to get, specifics about what it is. What I have gotten over the years is that we could be a little bit better at communicating. We're not great communicators. And that we could do a better job of giving more direction or more advice or communicating directly. As an example, you may say you want to go into the formal process, but I can remember being on the planning board and then finding out that they've got, 30 different things they've got to work on. Well, maybe it's not the best idea to be a part of the formal process. Maybe you really should step back and work more with staff. So what I've gotten over the years is that if we could change our level of communication and that we could be more proactive in our communication with the applicants, that, and help them understand why we have a process that we follow and what's important about it, that generally tends to help. Now, that's what developers have told me over the years. There's some developers who, are going to make that comparison that well, one does it this way, one does it that way. Yeah, I can't fix that part unless they tell me exactly what they think the issue is. So in my humble opinion, sending staff off to see what they can be more efficient in, we can start with communication. That's a pretty easy one. But in order to find out, where we may have pitfalls, I think that's more of a type of thing that communication has to come through the relationships developed with the planning staff and the developers, not necessarily that the board's going to fix it because they're not necessarily speaking to you. That's what I've learned over the years in talking to developers. So hopefully that helps, but number one thing, communication. Someone calls you, call them back. Someone sends you an email, email them back. Just stay in communication with them. That's the number one complaint I get, is that we're not great communicators. That's all I have.
okay, good.
Thank
Thanks.
Yeah, and I was just gonna follow up on the communication aspect. It's obviously, it's the returning the phone calls, returning the emails, ensuring our website is, really easy to read and, easy to consume. We wanna, again, have that balance of smart growth, but, having the ability to find the information and then kind of when the developers come and they, the questions become a little bit more, easier, respectful, or something along those lines. So I guess when we're looking at communication, we look at the whole picture of it, of verbal, electronic, website, all that good stuff.
Yeah,
Thank you, Art. I want to agree with what John said. I, as a business owner and sitting on the council, hear the same issues that John stated. And a lot of them don't like coming forward because they know that at some point, if they do complain too much, they have to come here and they have to look at and maybe not get what they wanted because they were the squeaky wheel or because they said something didn't work. And so they're more apt to say something to you privately than publicly because they know they're gonna have to come to plan. I'm gonna expand my business. Now I gotta go to planning or I go to ZBA and they gotta, you know, a grudge against me or whatever you want to interpret it as, that's what happens. And the website, I think the website is a tool and I don't think we use it to a big capacity and it really, really should be functional and easy to navigate and it should highlight in the economic development arm of it, that's where you should see the highlight of projects and actually put on there, this only took this much time. Then they can't say that it takes a lot of time when you're actually going, really? Well, this project only took under the 65, whatever. I'm just saying that you have to sell your value, not your shortcomings. And that's what we're here to do. Londonderry and this town and this staff bring a lot of value. And so we don't want to devalue what we have by constantly criticizing and this and that. Everything can be improved, and it should be, and it always should be looked over. But I think with a new person on board, we might be able to polish our presence and our ability to deal with new businesses a little bit differently. But you're right, there are people out there who are, like you said, they don't want things to happen too fast.
Do we still have an economic development website?
It's on our site. It really needs updating.
That is one of the things that I will be updating.
Because I
It's
actually.
very out of date, but
back,
yes, it's.
back in a past career, I actually worked on, back when Andre Guerin was here, I worked with him on the site, and within a couple of years, it had gotten rolled back into the town site, so.
So I will say there's one big change
Okay,
you gotta do
Al
there.
has the floor
Wait
right
a minute.
now.
I'm sorry
Wait a
about
minute.
that.
Al has
I
the
didn't-
floor.
I didn't
Wait a
see
minute,
Al's-
folks, I will stay here till midnight.
Yeah,
After the
Al's gonna
business
ask you.
that we're here for tonight is done, please, we have things that we have to vote on, a CIP workshop that we have to do. You want to discuss this afterward, because this was not on the agenda, I will stay all night. Thank you.
Okay, I think there's a consensus that we will, have a workshop discussion at some point in the first quarter of this year, depending upon the workload that we do have. So, thank you, Al. I would like to get on to business at hand here. We have a public hearing on an application for a formal review of a site plan for a trucking terminal and associated site improvements at 15 Rockingham Road, tax map 13, lot 99, zone commercial 2. Alfred and Nicole Pettori are the owners, and Pettori Brothers Paving is the applicant. This had been continued from a November 9th meeting, and they have requested a continuance to the 11th of January, 2023.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion that the continuance is granted till January 11th of 2023.
Second?
Motion by Al, second by Jake. Any discussion by the board? Seeing none, all those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, say nay. Abstentions, here it's affirmative. And the public hearing on an application for a formal review of a site plan for a trucking terminal and associated site improvements, 15 Rockingham Road, tax map 13, lot 99, zone commercial 2. Alfred and Nicole Pettori Jr. and Pettori are the owners, and Pettori Brothers Paving has been continued to the 11th of January, 2023 at 7 p.m. right here. This is your only official public notice. Next, we have a public hearing on an application for formal review of a lot line adjustment plan to adjust the lot line between 7 Chatwell Court, tax map 3, lot 45-61, zoned agricultural residential 1, and 11 Greeley Road, tax map 3, lot 165-1, zone agricultural residential 1. Diana F. Walters Revocable Trust is the owner and applicant, and it's continued from the January 2nd, 2022 meeting. And the application is requesting continuance to January 4th, 2023.
So move on the continuance to January 4th, 2023, Mr. Chairman.
Second?
Okay, motion is by Al, second by Jake, for continuance. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, say nay. Abstentions, the chair votes affirmative. And the public hearing on an application for a formal review of a lot line adjustment plan to adjust the lot line between 7 Chartwell Court, tax map 3, lot 45-61, zone agricultural residential 1, and 11 Greeley Road, tax map 3, lot 165-1, zone agricultural residential 1. Diana F. Walters Revocable Trust is the owner and applicant. This is continued to the January 4th, 2023, at 7 PM right here. And this is your only official public notice. Okay, we're moving along now. So, capital improvement plan, CIP workshop to discuss CIP ranking criteria and I guess other essential parts of recommended changes to the CIP plan. So, Amy.
Thank you,
have the
Mr.
floor.
Chairman. After a request by the school district to review the scoring criteria to see if there were any criteria that needed to be more evenly balanced between town-side projects and school-side projects, the town staff met with the school district staff. We reviewed some of them. We took some proposed changes to the CIP committee on November 28th. And after their review, they recommended the following change, that the original criteria read addresses an emergency or public safety need, and the proposed changes addresses an emergency, public safety, or school safety need. So we would like to bring that to you guys and have that approved to change the scoring criteria to reflect that.
Okay, has the CIP committee had a chance to review this?
Yes, they have. This is their recommendation. They met on November 28th. They discussed any proposed changes, and this is the one that they have recommended moving forward with.
Okay, and school, I think is in agreement with this?
Yes, we are.
Oh, okay, and the town?
That's exactly
was
what
gonna
I
be my
want to know.
question.
What does school safety need?
That's a
What is
very
it?
broad subject.
A school safety need could be building, could be vestibules, could be security needs at the building.
Is there anything else besides that, and how do you determine what the safety situation is by adding a vestibule? What's the purpose of it? And I'm not trying to
Access to the building. So, I mean, those are already added, so I was just using that as an example. There's a lot of school safety things that we will be moving forward.
So I guess what I'm considering is, I have a growth in student population, therefore I need to add, additions to the building?
Yep. So
Is that a need because of the school population growth? How would that fit in with safety?
it probably, in that particular case, it probably wouldn't. And I think the committee would have to score that accordingly. But I think in that particular case, it wouldn't be a safety score.
So I would recommend that instead of just public safety need, you might want to add growth or something else in there as well as a need. So you could properly score it in that regard. Just from what I see there, it's kind of vague, and I can think a lot of things that you might want money for that wouldn't fit into public safety.
Right.
Just my opinion.
I don't have the rest of the scores.
I do.
Some of them must have.
There are other criteria within the list that aren't being changed that cover some of the other options that you might be bringing up. So in this instance, this one, when it originally read with just an emergency or public safety need, the school never felt like they could score that one. The school district never felt like they could
Right.
score points on that one
Right.
or anything. But if they have to do things like cameras or, additional safety needs for access to the school, they now have an ability to score that one higher now.
That's nice, but what about adding a classroom because of growth or an overcrowded situation where?
That would be covered in addresses a deficiency in service or facility, which is one of the other criteria that they can score on.
Okay, I don't have that in front of me, so I didn't see
You're
that.
correct, because I only gave you the one that they're proposing to change, not all the rest of them. So
Okay.
Okay,
the,
the rest haven't changed at all.
That makes
right?
it
the rest of
easier.
them aren't being changed.
Okay, the rest is,
And
there's
I
no
think
changes
that-
other than this right here.
I think this particular one, the school could never score on a public safety, so I just felt, I think we felt that we needed to have some sort of value there that we could score the same as the town could score. If in the end, we're gonna, bottom line and have a total for both the town and the school, that they should have the same criteria to score and then rank them.
So the school safety is student safety, to protect the students, the
If-
staff.
The item was for safety, so school safety, public safety, yeah. So we're on the same playing field as far as scoring.
Okay, so I'm going to get back to my original idea. You've got other criteria in there,
Yes.
okay?
there's,
Is
what,
this
seven-
number one on the list?
Correct.
Okay, so if I look at this as number one on the list, I'm going to give this more weight than adding a classroom because of overcrowding.
Each criteria gets 5 points.
Okay,
So I could shuffle the order of them, and each criteria is evaluated itself and gets 5 points, and has a maximum of 5 points that it can get.
okay,
And then the score is added up at the end to score the project.
okay. That makes it a lot easier to understand and a lot easier for the public to understand when they see just, public safety need. So, thank you.
Okay, Jeff.
Mr. Chair, at least I just have one quick question, and thank you for kind of jumping on this and working through this in the midst of budget season as well. But I just want to kind of confirm that the way that the criteria is going to be now, the school district isn't going to come back to the CIP committee next summer and interpret different types of criteria like it has in the past.
No,
Correct.
we will be using this criteria. That's why we wanted to change the language,
Exactly.
so it could apply to the school as well as the town.
Great. I just wanted just to kind of confirm that, because that's really kind of what triggered
Right.
these discussions here is
Right.
over the summer, different types of interpretations were made based on the criteria. The CIP committee, had really good discussion with the school district staff, Lisa and Dan at the time, just said, yeah, we got to really clean this up.
I think
So
just these few words
yeah,
add
so
some clarity
so-
to it,
so
and then.
thank you for that.
Sure.
Okay, I'll take a trip to the board, see if everyone's okay. Ann,
I'm fine, thank you.
Deb,
I'm good.
anything else to add, Jeff?
No, I'm good, thank you.
Lynn,
I'm all set.
I'm good now.
Johnny,
I'm good.
Jason,
I'm good.
Bruce?
I'm safe.
I'm good. I think, Al, it was, for like the school safety need side of things, I'm trying to remember back to the meeting. I think one of the examples of it was, the floor in one of the sections of the high school was, it's in failure or what have you, but that it didn't meet an emergency or public safety need per se, as it did a school safety need. So I think that was where the conversation had begun and started with, well, how do we change this a little bit? And I think that's where it had kind of started on, was there's a floor that's failing. It's not a public safety need. It's not, public safety need to me is the fire department needs a tanker. That's a public safety need.
Oh, that sure is.
Yeah, exactly. So the question came about as, well, where does the fact that, there's potential to fall through the floor, where does that fall inside of the criteria?
Well, I just want to make sure that, and I agree with you completely with what you just said, and I want to make sure in that situation, they get what they need.
Yeah.
I just want to make sure the scoring language here
So I,
is appropriate to
Yeah.
everything, including what you
and I
just said.
think that's why it was, because they would look at it and go, well, it's not a public safety need. Because again, a public safety need is, we need 5 more cruisers, or we need a tanker, that type of thing is a public safety need.
I agree, that's a really good example.
Yeah.
Yep, so I think we're satisfied.
And we would like to take this to a public hearing in January then.
Yes. Yep, and then we'll make it official.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Okay, you're welcome. Okay, any other business? We can continue our discussion we had started in regards to our ordinances, regulations, and so forth, so.
Yeah.
There's, probably would tell the board to read through what we have right now, and then we'll have a meeting, probably the beginning of next year, a workshop session in between, because I don't know how building for the next season is gonna be. At least this past year, it slowed down more from what it had done the previous years, so maybe we'll have the time to, sit and discuss.
think
But
it's
things,
just-
things like that, we have to do publicly.
Yeah,
We
I
can
think it's
meet with
just a
our-
good
our-
exercise, you know, and like I said, maybe there's nothing wrong, maybe we identify a couple things we can improve on. You know, signs are a perfect example of something that we,
Periodic review is always,
Yeah,
always
that we-
good, so.
Favorite signs.
And
It's not a
it's
process.
crazy, that, you
It's
know.
not a
is it
process
possible, is it possible for staff to create an economic development or building survey that developers or applicants who have gone through the process can fill out in an anonymous fashion to give staff feedback, where it's not a situation where they feel there's going to be
Backlash.
a backlash or so, you
Be
know.
something where you do like an independent, you know, have a
A survey,
independent
You-
third party come
you
in
need
and
a-
talk.
Yeah, a third-party
Yeah.
source to do the,
think
do
that
the
would be a great
survey.
Like a survey monkey kind of
You
thing.
could, yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, there's plenty of
But some of that we
organizations
could
for
get
that.
into where we need money and would have to,
Obviously,
you
go
know,
to the
lobby
council.
our town council for.
Well, I think that's like key if we really want to do this right. Because I agree with what John was saying. A lot of it's communication. I agree with what Debbie was saying, and that's the point I was trying to make. It's like it's kind of like reporting on your boss or your principal or something. You know, it's like you know these people have to work, especially the engineers have to work in the town, and maybe that's why they stumble over some of the feedback when you ask it, John, because they're afraid to give it.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's almost like if you really want to take a look at it and you really want to be
It has to be done independently.
customer friendly, you need that feedback.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
you
it's
can
gotta
see
be
what,
arm's
and-
length so that we're not,
and I don't think anybody here is proposing like, oh, well, let's loosen them up and get more development or anything like that. It's just, there's a difference between getting a project approved in 36 months and getting a project approved in 8 or 9 months. If they have the right with the current subdivision regulations or site plan regulations to do it. And I think that's a lot of the feedback I hear.
Yeah.
You know?
It could be as simple as just implementing a design session like we've done on a number of projects. You know, it's not required, but perhaps that's something that we should require, where they come forward for feedback from the board before they submit a formal application.
yeah, I think that's something we should, seriously consider is doing, to come in for conceptual.
Making that a requirement.
Making that a requirement, which, we found that we can do that legally because it's in the statute. So we can do that. And I think that would be good. That would iron out some of the problems I think that we have run into. And especially those who don't understand the difference between a design review and a, formal application. That seems to be a stumbling block, from time to time, that some engineers just don't understand, or they're aren't familiar with Londonderry's process because they've been hired by someone else, because usually most engineers are hard to find now anyway, so.
And staff also has an opportunity on those to give feedback as well, right?
Yes, I mean, they're the first line. I mean, they're the ones that deal with the public, and they give the advice and everything. Sometimes the engineer does not, or the developer does not like their advice, and that's where usually we end up getting stuff in a formal review. And then we have to spell out to them how things are done. The prime thing is to work with staff, that's what should be at the top of our regulations, work with staff,
Well, the attorney did say that we could mandate design review, but it has to be approved by the council, the legislative body.
I think it's part of the ordinance, so planning board would make a recommendation to the town
Already
council.
have a
the
design
town council
review.
would.
You're saying, you know.
I'm saying to mandate it. They must
Yeah.
approach and complete a design review to mandate it. And I heard several
it's a
people on this
conceptual.
board mention that before. We can do that, but it has to be approved by the council.
I think I heard
Jenny?
conceptual discussion, not.
Yeah, I'm
Yeah,
talking about
it's,
conceptual.
yeah, conceptual.
Mandate a
But-
conceptual
I,
discussion.
sorry, I
as
may
well.
have used the wrong terminology.
Yeah, but-
Conceptuals.
The only thing I will say is that if and I think it's a great idea, and I think it's a recommended procedure. But maybe you should put it in some parameters around it if you're gonna make it required, because then we're gonna hear twice as many projects every week, and we'll be here more towards that 11 o'clock night. So I also heard over here too, like the minor site plan changes, like when they get in there, and if it's like a small adjustment to a building or things of that nature, do we have to come back in for a whole new site plan change, or right now?
Not in all situations. We do offer an administrative review process, which is done by staff,
Yeah.
and we also offer a minor site plan review process. Again,
is
it's done by staff. It's
Yeah, I
two
think
different
that's smart.
processes.
And if usually something falls on the borderline, staff will ask us, you know, do you want a, you know, a full-fledged public hearing and everything on this, or can we handle it? Usually we say, staff can handle it.
Yeah, the staff does let us know when they have those minor changes. They tell us at the meetings.
Sounds good.
Anything? I think we got a lot of,
So first quarter 2023. Oh geez, 2023. Oh God.
I know, almost it'll be March of '23 before we know it, and it'll, oh, gee, how come we haven't got that done yet? But, yeah, we will work at it.
Do we have a roadmap of other workshop topics?
We have, I know we have a list, some of, they're all up here. I think Kelly's got some of them. Colleen had a list anyway, because I worked with Colleen, and
Signs.
signs of, is always the big thing, I think.
Been around for years.
Signs, we probably need an attorney to work at that with us, because it's a quagmire.
Giggity.
It is. You don't want to trample on someone's rights, you know, there's, I
Careful
know
with
several
signs.
US Supreme Court decisions regarding signs, so. The feds have really got much more involved with, than they have in the past 100 years anyway. So,
Motion to adjourn?
Second.
I have a motion to adjourn, and I heard a second from Jeff. All those in favor of adjournment signify by saying aye.
Aye.
We're adjourned.